My mom and stepdad made me a free caregiver for my disabled stepsister. I used to think I understood my mother. She was practical, resilient, the kind of woman who believed in coupon books and early morning coffee routines. So when she started dating again after years of being single, I didn't expect her to fall for a man like Richard Collins, a man whose entire existence looked curated for a real estate brochure. The first time she brought me to his house, I didn't know where to look. Everything felt too polished. The grass was cut low enough to see your reflection. The driveway was wide enough for cars his neighbors probably pretended not to envy. The inside was all soft whites, grays, and that quiet background music rich people like to play to prove they're not stressed. Mom acted like she belonged there. Maybe she wanted to belong there. I stood awkwardly near the doorway while she disappeared into the kitchen with Richard, both laughing like teenagers. That was the day he introduced me to his daughter. Michael, he said, with that firm handshake men use to assert authority, I want you to meet someone very special. He stepped aside like a performer revealing the final act of a magic trick. There she was, Lily Collins, 16, pale blonde hair falling in a curtain around her shoulders, sitting in a wheelchair like a delicate porcelain figurine too fragile to be touched. She looked up at me and smiled shyly, the kind of smile that was soft around the edges, almost shy enough to seem harmless. Hi, she whispered. It's really nice to meet you. I nodded, unsure whether I should crouch down or stay standing. Nice to meet you too. Her legs were thin, wrapped in a soft blanket even though it was warm inside. She didn't look sick, just gentle, almost angelic. Everything about her said handle with care. But her eyes? There was something sharp in them, just a glint. It was gone before I fully noticed. I brushed it off. Maybe she was nervous. We all sat down for dinner, where every dish was arranged like a Pinterest post, salmon drizzled. Vegetables lined up perfectly. The kind of stuff I wouldn't dare touch in the wrong order. Mom looked happier than I'd seen in years. She kept touching Richard's arm, smoothing her hair, adjusting her napkin. She was trying too hard, but I couldn't blame her. She'd been working and struggling alone since I was a kid. Maybe she just wanted ease, stability, a nice house with manicured hedges. But there was a feeling in my stomach I couldn't shake. A wrongness in the air. The kind that only teenagers can detect and adults completely ignore. After dinner, I found myself alone in the hallway with Lily. She pushed her wheelchair slightly with small, delicate movements. You must think it's weird, she said, brushing her hair behind her ear. What? That our parents are getting married so fast? I shrugged. Fast is an understatement. She smiled slowly. Yeah, Dad likes things his way, quickly, and exactly how he imagines them. The way she said it was strange to heavy for a 16-year-old whose life, as far as I could tell, was comfortable and sheltered. Before I could ask what she meant, Richard walked back into the room, instantly brightening. Isn't she just the sweetest? He said, placing a hand on Lily's shoulder like she was a trophy he polished every Sunday. She lowered her gaze obediently, and for a moment, I felt sorry for her. I didn't know then how deeply wrong that first impression was. The wedding came 3 months later. Simple, elegant, tasteful, just like everything in Richard's world. It was held in a vineyard behind the Collins house, with white chairs lined up in rows straight enough to measure with a ruler. Mom walked down the aisle smiling like her life had finally aligned. I stood there, watching her, feeling the distance grow between us even as she passed me. Lily sat in the front row, dressed in pale blue, her hands folded perfectly on her lap. She caught my eye once and gave me a small wave. Her father leaned close to adjust the blanket around her legs, whispering something I couldn't hear. Everyone looked so happy or so sure. I tried to believe in the illusion, tried to believe that this was a new chapter and not a warning. When the vows were spoken, the clapping echoed off the vineyard walls. Mom and Richard kissed, and in that moment, I felt the ground shift under me, not literally, but in a way that told me life was changing faster than I could control. After the ceremony, while people took pictures and drank champagne, Lily rolled up beside me. You're part of the family now, she said quietly. I hope you won't leave too soon. Her voice was soft, but something in the words felt intentional. I laughed, unsure. I'm going to college soon. She just tilted her head. Things might change, she murmured. You never know. I didn't understand what she meant. Not yet, but that day, the perfect wedding, the smiles, the vineyard was the beginning of the worst chapter of my life, and the beginning of hers, in a way. It was the day we were both trapped, though only one of us knew it. The day my life was rerouted began stupidly normal. I was sitting at the kitchen counter, eating leftover pizza straight from the box, planning which dorm I wanted, which classes I would take, how good it would feel to finally have my own space. College felt like the first real step into adulthood, finally, becoming my own person. The acceptance email was printed and taped above my desk. I read it at least twice a day. It was one of the few things in my life that felt mine. That morning, Mom hovered around the kitchen, like she was, waiting for the right moment. To ruin the mood, she wiped the same countertop corner 4 times, kept glancing toward the living room. Then back at me. Michael, she said finally. Can we talk? Whenever adults say, can we talk, it's never good. I slid the pizza away and braced myself. Yeah. What's up? She cleared her throat, clasping her hands like she was holding her own fingers hostage. Richard and I. We've been talking. And Lily, well, she's been asking about you. I frowned. Asking what? She really enjoyed having you around these last few months, Mom continued. She said you make her feel safe, comfortable. I didn't know what to say. Lily barely talked around me unless her father was hovering nearby. She seemed shy, quiet, polite, but safe. I wasn't sure where that came from. Mom gave me a tight smile. She's still adjusting. The disability has made her feel isolated for so long. You're the only person close to her age she spends time with. Okay, I said slowly, but what does that have to do with me? She exhaled too quickly, a bad sign. She asked if you'd take a year before starting college, Mom said gently. A gap year, to bond with her, help her transition. You know, just be around. My jaw literally dropped. A year. Mom, no, I'm already accepted. Classes start in August. Before she could answer, Richard walked into the kitchen, perfectly timed, carrying the tone of someone who'd rehearsed this. Michael, I know it's a lot, he said, clapping a hand on my shoulder like we were close. But this would help Lily more than you can imagine. I can visit on weekends, I argued. Not postpone my entire life. Richard exchanged a look. With my mother, the kind of look married people practice when they want something and won't take no for an answer. He inhaled deeply and began his monologue. Lily's been through so much with her spinal condition, her mother leaving, the social isolation. It's taken a toll, but she's opened up around you. She laughs more. She sleeps better. You bring stability, routine, comfort. It all felt weirdly scripted. Mom nodded eagerly. She told me she's never connected with anyone like she connects with you. That statement crawled under my skin. We had barely spoken beyond polite greetings. I pushed back from the counter. I'm not a therapist. Or a babysitter. I'm starting my life in 2 months. Richard softened his voice the way adults do when they're about to emotionally guilt trip you into doing something stupid. We're not asking for anything crazy, he lied smoothly. Just some time, a year. You'd still live here, have everything you need. You could work part-time if you want, but being present for Lily would help her recovery. I realized then that being present meant something very different in his vocabulary. My mom looked at me with pleading, hopeful eyes. Eyes that said, don't make this hard. Eyes that said, don't embarrass me in front of him. Eyes that said, I chose him. So please, choose us. I suddenly felt like a guest in my own life. Michael, she said, her voice trembling just a little. This family needs you. Family. That word cut deeper than anything. I wasn't sure I liked the new definition of it. I swallowed the rising panic and looked between them. Richard in his crisp shirt, the picture of composed authority. My mom, nervous and desperate to maintain the perfect new life she'd finally secured. And me, the one with everything to lose. I didn't want to say yes. I didn't want to sacrifice my plans. But there was pressure in the air unspoken, heavy, calculated, and I felt cornered. Fine. I whispered, I'll take the gap year. Richard's face brightened instantly, too instantly, like he had expected to win. Mom let out a sigh of relief so dramatic it nearly echoed. Thank you, she whispered. You won't regret this. I already regretted it. That afternoon, Lily rolled up to me with a small smile. Thank you for staying, she said, her voice soft and sweet. It means so much more than you know. She reached out a hand like she wanted me to take it. I hesitated, just for a second, and in that 1 second, her smile twitched just slightly into something sharper before softening again. I should have noticed. I should have listened to my instincts. But I took her hand anyway, and that was the moment the trap snapped shut. If I had known what the gap year really meant, I would have packed my bags and run before sunrise. But the thing about traps is that they never look like traps at first. They look like favors, like family duties, like harmless requests wrapped in soft voices and careful smiles. It started the morning after I agreed to stay. I woke up early, planning to go for a walk before everyone else was up. When I stepped into the hallway, Teresa, their longtime maid mid-50s, sharp cheekbones, hair pulled into a strict bun, was waiting for me. Not accidentally waiting. Waiting. Oh, good, she said briskly. You're awake. Come. I blinked. Morning. What's going on? She didn't answer. She just walked ahead with the pace of someone who expected to be followed. I trailed behind her, too confused to be suspicious yet, until we reached the dining room table. There were papers spread out neatly across it, printed charts, schedules, medication lists, daily routines. It looked like training orientation for a hospital intern. Teresa gestured to the chair across from her. Sit. I sat slowly. What is all this? Your responsibilities, she said with no emotion, pushing a stack of printed sheets toward me. Mr. Collins said you'll be assuming the role of Miss Lily's primary caregiver. My brain stalled like an engine choking on cheap gas. Caregiver, I repeated. No. I agreed to spend time with her, not for this. Teresa looked at me like I was naive beyond repair. You took a gap year, she said simply. They interpreted that as full availability. I stared at the schedule. 6:30 a.m., wake Lily, morning transfer. 6:45. Bathroom assistance. 7 o'clock. Dress her. 7:15. Medication. 7:30. Breakfast prep. 8 o'clock. Wheel her to therapy room. 9:30. Accompany to online school sessions. And it went on for 9 pages. This is a full-time job, I whispered. Teresa's mouth tightened. With overtime. I looked up sharply. And I'm not being paid? She shrugged slightly, a gesture that said not my circus. Not my monkeys. I just follow orders. But you should know, I'm leaving next week. What? You're quitting. No, she corrected, almost annoyed. I resigned months ago. I stayed only to make sure you were settled in before I left. Settled in. Like I was a new employee they needed to train. I felt something cold settle in my gut. You should talk to Richard, I said, standing up too quickly. I didn't agree to this. But just as I stood, he walked into the room. Perfectly timed again. Like he had been waiting for the exact moment I discovered the truth. Morning, he said cheerfully. I see Teresa has given you the orientation. I turned on him. I'm not doing this. I didn't sign up to be her caregiver. He smiled the way CEOs do in commercials, warm but not real. You said you'd help her this year. He reminded me. This is helping. This is a job, I insisted. People get trained and paid to do this. We are training you, he countered smoothly, and payment isn't necessary. We're a family. Family supports each other. It was such a polished manipulation that I almost choked. And what about college? I said, my future. Richard placed a hand on my shoulder, squeezing a bit too firmly. College will always be there, he said. But Lily's needs? They're immediate. My throat tightened. Mom? I whispered, looking toward the doorway. She stood there, silent, watching, not stepping in, not defending me, not even flinching, like she had already made her choice. Her silence heard far more than Richard's words. Richard straightened and clasped his hands. You'll do great. Lily trusts you more than anyone. That means something. I opened my mouth, ready to argue again. But then Lily rolled into the room. Hair soft, pajamas pressed, eyes wide with innocence. Michael, she said sweetly. Are you upset? Her voice was tiny, trembling. Her hands clasped on her lap like a child who thought she'd done something wrong. I know, I said quickly, throat tightening. It's fine. Because I couldn't hurt her feelings. Because I didn't want to be the bad guy in her eyes. Because even though something felt off, she looked so fragile. Richard smiled behind her, a smile of victory. See, he said softly, she needs you. And just like that, my protest died. Teresa slid the schedule back toward me. You start today. My first task was waking Lily and helping her through her morning routine. It felt wrong to intimate, to personal, but she played her part perfectly. Soft voice, gentle gratitude, apologizing for being so much work. By noon, I had wheeled her through lunch, helped with schoolwork, assisted in stretches, and reorganized her entire medication cart. I was exhausted. She, meanwhile, looked perfectly content. But there was one moment, one tiny slip when she reached for a water bottle on the table. Her hand shot forward faster than I expected, steady and controlled, and she lifted it easily. Then she froze. She looked at me, and slowly, deliberately, she let her wrist go limp so the bottle slipped, clattering onto the table as she pulled her hand back. Oh no, she whispered. I can't grip things well today. I'm sorry. She watched my face too carefully for someone who was supposedly apologizing. I didn't know what to say. I didn't understand what I was seeing. Not yet. So I picked up the bottle and handed it to her. And she smiled. Not the sweet smile she had used before. A different one. A smile that told me something I'd been too blind to see. The moment people know you're trapped, they change. Not always loudly. Not immediately. Sometimes it happens in small shifts: tone, posture, timing, tiny details that only become obvious after you're too deep to climb out. For Lily, the change came quietly, like a hinge turning in the dark. At first, she kept up the sweet act, the soft voice, the helpless apologies, the grateful smiles that made me feel guilty for ever doubting anything. And honestly, a part of me still wanted to believe she needed me. But the problem with pretending to be helpless is that it's addictive. You get used to the attention, the protection, the excuses. And when someone starts depending on your helplessness for power, the sweetness rots. The turning point came 1 week after Teresa left. I walked into Lily's room one morning carrying her breakfast oatmeal with blueberries and a little honey, exactly how she said she liked it. She was sitting in bed, scrolling on her phone with both hands. Both hands, steady, perfectly capable. But the moment she heard me, she dropped the phone onto her lap and snapped her wrists inward like they were too weak to hold anything. Oh, she gasped dramatically. Michael, can you help me? My hands are stiff today. I froze in the doorway. 10 seconds earlier, her hands had moved fast and fluid normal. Now she curled them like wilted flowers. I saw you using your phone. I said before I could stop myself. Her head jerked slightly. Then slowly, she gave a soft, sad smile. I was just trying, she whispered. I don't like feeling useless. A brilliant emotional judo. I felt like an asshole for even questioning it. Sorry, I muttered. Let me help. She softened again. You're so good to me. But something in her eyes gleamed. Something calculating. The next shift came when Richard walked in unexpectedly. Wow. I was adjusting her wheelchair. Michael didn't help me for almost an hour today. Lily told him immediately, pouting. My head snapped up. What? Lily, I was. You went downstairs, she said, voice trembling. I was scared. I stared at her, shocked. I went downstairs to get your charger. You asked for it. She blinked at her father with perfect innocence. I didn't. He must have misunderstood. I felt heat rising up my neck. Lily, enough. Richard snapped. Don't argue with her. I stood there in disbelief. I'm not arguing, I'm correcting. Don't raise your voice. He warned coldly. I wasn't raising my voice. But her lie had already taken root. Lily lowered her gaze. Dad, please don't be mad. I know he tries. She looked up at him with wide, glassy eyes. He's doing his best. Richard turned to me like he was praying for patience. Just stay with her. She needs consistency. My stomach twisted. This was the trap. Right here. And it was only tightening. After that, the lies grew bolder. Michael forgot to help me to the bathroom. Michael left the window open and I got cold. Michael raised his voice at me. Michael made me move too much during stretches. Michael scared me. Each one was said with trembling lips and watery eyes, engineered to land perfectly in Richard's ears. My mom stayed quiet, always quiet. She didn't defend me, didn't question anything. She just watched like a coward hiding behind polite smiles. Then came the day Lily tested how far she could push it. I had just finished reorganizing her medical card when she suddenly snapped. That's wrong. I turned. What is? You put my antispasmodic in the second drawer. You told me to put it there yesterday. That's not what I said, she snapped sharply. Are you not listening to me? You're supposed to be helping, not making everything harder. I blinked, stunned. This wasn't a sad whisper. This was a commanding tone, sharp, entitled, confident. But the moment footsteps approached in the hallway, she immediately softened her face and whimpered. Michael, please don't be mad. I'm just tired. My jaw dropped. She had transformed instantly. Richard walked in a second later, and she looked up at him with huge, watery eyes. Dad, she whispered, I think Michael is frustrated with me. Richard glared at me like I'd kicked a puppy. Why? I don't know, she breathed, voice trembling. I'm doing my best. I stepped forward. She's lying. Lily flinched dramatically, shrinking back as if I'd raised a hand. My heart dropped. I would never hurt her, ever. But the performance was perfect. Richard stepped between us like he was protecting his daughter from danger. That's enough, he said in a low voice. You need to control your temper. I began. Lower your voice, he barked. My mom appeared in the doorway, looking pale. But still, she said nothing. Nothing. I realized then that silence can be as cruel as any weapon. After they left, Lily looked at me with a slow, almost bored expression, the mask finally gone. You're stuck, she said quietly. They believe me, not you. I felt something cold crawl down my spine. She leaned back in her chair, twirling a strand of hair around her finger, something she only did when adults weren't around. Something she did with perfect coordination. I don't lie all the time, she murmured. Only when I feel like you're not doing enough. I swallowed hard. I do everything. She smirked. Exactly. And now you know why. My hands shook. This wasn't a fragile girl. This wasn't a helpless child. This was someone who knew exactly how much power she had, and exactly how to use it. You won't say anything, she added, her voice soft again, because that would make you look cruel. And you're not cruel, Michael. She tilted her head. But I can be. And nobody would ever believe it. I stared at her, realization sinking in like poison. She wasn't trapped. I was. For the first time, I truly understood. This wasn't a gap year. This wasn't bonding. This was captivity. And she was enjoying every second of it. It started slowly. Little things. Small demands said in a soft voice, followed by that sweet smile she weaponized so easily. Michael, can you fold my shirts again? They're uneven. I know it's late, but I really need a smoothie right now. Can you push me outside? No, not there. The sun is too strong. Move a little to the left. No, more. At first, I told myself it wasn't a big deal. She was disabled. She needed help. This was what I'd agreed to. But it didn't stop. It escalated. It evolved. It became something darker. The first real incident happened at 2 a.m. I had finally fallen asleep exhausted, mentally drained when my phone buzzed. Lily, Michael, I need help. Now. Panic jolted me awake. I ran to her room, heart pounding, expecting an emergency. Instead, I found her sitting upright in her wheelchair, perfectly fine, holding a bag of chips. Oh good, she said casually. I want water. I stared at her, confused. Water? Lily, you scared me. She shrugged. I was thirsty. You could have called your dad, I muttered. She blinked slowly. He sleeps deeply. You're a closer. And you're supposed to take care of me? I brought the water. She took one sip, then wrinkled her nose. This is too cold. Dump it out and get warmer water. I felt anger rising slow, hot, dangerous. It's water, I said carefully. It'll warm up in a minute. Her eyes hardened. I said get me warmer water. I didn't move. She watched me with eerie calm. If you don't, I'll tell my dad you left me alone while I was thirsty. My stomach twisted. She had found her leverage. I went to get the warmer water. She smiled as she took it. Good boy. Boy, not brother. Not friend. Boy, a servant. And she enjoyed it? From there, the demands doubled in intensity. She wanted her laundry washed 3 times because it smelled wrong. She wanted baths at specific times, sometimes right after I had finished preparing dinner. She wanted me to redo her medication cart twice a week for cleanliness. She wanted outfits changed multiple times a day because she felt uncomfortable. And every time I hesitated, she had a ready-made lie. Dad, he's ignoring me again. Dad, he yelled. Dad, I felt unsafe. And Richard believed her every time. Every single time. My mom, silence. Always silence. Her silence hurt more than Richard's anger. But the worst was how she began testing her limits physically. One afternoon, while adjusting her chair, she suddenly stood using the side of the dresser for balance. I froze. Lily, what are you doing? She glanced at me over her shoulder. Relax. I can stand for a few seconds. Just don't tell Dad. She said it so casually, so confidently, like a normal teenager bragging. Then she dropped herself back onto the chair, instantly collapsing into the fragile doll she always performed. "Help me," she whispered. I lifted her gently, trying to hide my shock, but she watched my face carefully, like she wanted to see whether fear or suspicion won. "You didn't see anything?" she murmured. I didn't answer. She smiled like a cat that had eaten a bird. Over time, she became bolder. She began giving orders, not requests. "Bring me lunch. Fix my pillow. Wheel me outside. Stay with me. Don't leave until I tell you. You're walking too fast. You're walking too slow." And when she didn't feel like pretending, when the facade dropped completely, she spoke to me like I was nothing. "Ooh, Michael, why are you so slow? You're useless. You don't think. You just react." Then if her father walked by, she switched instantly into soft, trembling mode. "Michael, can you please help me? I'm so tired," she'd whisper, just loud enough for Richard to hear. And he would glare at me like I'd been bullying her. The worst moment happened on a Saturday afternoon. I'd spent the entire morning taking her to physical therapy, then grocery shopping, then helping her with school assignments because she claimed she couldn't type. By 3 p.m., I finally sat down to rest. 3 minutes later, Lily called out, "Michael, I need help." I stood up, exhausted. "What do you need?" She didn't look at me. She stared at her reflection in the window. "My legs hurt. I want to stretch." "Okay," I said gently. "We just stretched 2 hours ago, but I want to stretch now." I took a breath. "All right, I'm coming." She rolled her eyes. "You move so slow. Do you enjoy making me suffer?" I clenched my fists. "I'm doing my best." "No," she said sharply. "Your best would be faster." I swallowed my pride and helped her into her therapy position, lifting her legs gently. "Higher," she demanded. I raised them slightly. "Higher. Any more, and I would have hurt her." "Lily, that's enough." She glared at me. "You don't tell me what's enough. You do what I say." She was 16. But in that moment, she held more authority over my life than any adult ever had. "I think we should," I began. She cut me off, sneering. "You think too much? Just obey." I froze. "Obey. Not help. Not assist. Obey." Her voice softened suddenly, fake vulnerability sliding back into place like a mask. "Michael," she whispered, "you don't want to disappoint my dad, right?" My heart sank. She had me. Completely. Clinically. And she knew it? That night, I collapsed into bed feeling like the walls were closing in. Like I couldn't breathe without her permission. Like my life had shrunk into a list of commands and lies. And the worst part? No one believed me. Not my mom. Not Richard. No neighbor. No friend. No one. I was alone. Trapped in a role I never agreed to. And Lily wasn't done. Not even close. She had only begun testing how much she could demand. And how much I would endure. People imagine breaking points as loud moments shouting, slammed doors, dramatic collapse. But the truth is quieter. It starts as a crack, a hairline fracture in your patience, a whisper in your brain saying, "This isn't normal. This isn't okay." But you keep going anyway, until one day, someone pushes you 1 inch too far, and everything you've been holding back finally snaps. My breaking point arrived on a Thursday afternoon, right after Lily's online school session ended and right before Richard got home early from work. I was sitting at the dining table, sorting her medications into a weekly organizer, a mind-numbing chore she pretended she couldn't do. Despite being perfectly capable, Lily was in the living room, watching a show, scrolling through her phone with full dexterity since no adults were around to see. I heard her laugh, an unfiltered, real laugh, and for a second she looked like a normal teenager, not the delicate porcelain doll she transformed into when Richard appeared. Then the front door opened, and instantly she dropped her phone, curled her fingers like they were stiff, slumped into the chair, and let her face fall into a mask of exhaustion. "Dad," she called out weakly. "Dad, I don't feel good." My stomach dropped. Not again. Richard walked in, still holding his briefcase. He rushed toward her. "Lily, what's wrong?" She gave a trembling sigh. "Michael left me alone again. For a long time. I tried calling him, but he wouldn't come. My legs were hurting so bad. I was scared. My hands stopped moving. My heart stopped beating." She had never called me. Not once. She had been 5 feet away from me the entire time. Richard turned, slow and furious, like a volcano preparing to erupt. "Michael." My name sounded like an accusation. I stood, trying to keep my voice calm. I didn't leave her alone. I was right here. She never called me. Lily gasped softly, a perfect theatrical wince. "He's lying. Dad, I would never make something like that up." Richard's face hardened. "Why didn't you answer her?" "I didn't hear anything," I said, louder this time. "She never called me. She's lying." Lily flinched dramatically, her hands shaking. "Michael, please stop yelling. You're scaring me." I wasn't yelling, not even close, but she knew exactly what to say to frame me. Richard stepped forward. "Lower your voice." "I'm not raising it," I said desperately. "She is terrified," he snapped. "No, she's not," I burst out. "She's acting. She's manipulating you." As soon as the words left my mouth, I knew it was over. Lily gasped in perfect horror, tears welling instantly so fast it had to be rehearsed. "You think I'm lying?" she whispered, voice cracking. "You think I enjoy this? You think I'm faking?" Richard rounded on me. How dare you? You think she chooses to be disabled? You think any of this is fun for her? She stood up earlier this week. I shouted before I could stop myself. She stood on her own. Lily let out a sob so dramatic it echoed. Why are you making things up? Dad, why is he saying these things? I'm scared. My head spun. She was turning the room upside down, and no one but me could see it. Michael, Richard growled, stepping closer. You are done raising your voice at her. I'm not. Don't interrupt me. I shut my mouth, shaking with rage and disbelief. Then he said the words that broke something inside me. You need to think very carefully about your place in this family. Family. There it was again, used as a weapon. I stared at my mother standing behind him, arms folded, eyes downcast, not defending me, not correcting anything. Just existing in silence like a spectator at a show she didn't want to admit was rigged. Her silence hit me harder than Richard's anger. If you just do your job, Richard hissed, she wouldn't have to go through this. Job? The word burned. I wasn't an employee. I wasn't being paid. I wasn't even supposed to be here. But Lily spoke before I could answer. Dad, she said softly, reaching one delicate hand toward him, please, don't be mad at Michael. He's just overwhelmed. She was playing both sides, accusing me and rescuing me at the same time, strengthening her role as the innocent, misunderstood victim. Richard exhaled sharply. You're too forgiving, sweetheart. She cast her eyes down. I just want us to get along. She performed vulnerability like an artist, and Richard bought it. Hook, line, sinker. He turned to me with cold disappointment. You should apologize to her. I stared in disbelief. Apologize? For what? For upsetting her? He said, voice iron hard. For accusing her. For raising your voice. For neglecting her. Neglect. The word almost made me laugh if I hadn't been so close to actual tears. I had given up my entire life for this girl. And she knew it? Lily looked at me with big, glistening eyes. Michael, she whispered, I forgive you. Forgive me. Like she had power over me. Like I was beneath her. My hands trembled. I'm not apologizing, I said quietly. I haven't done anything wrong. Silence. Richard's jaw clenched. Then you need to calm down before we discuss this again. I am calm, I insisted. Lily jumped, flinching like a frightened rabbit. Dad, he's yelling. I'm not. Enough. Richard roared. The room fell silent. For a moment, the house felt like it was vibrating. I looked at Lily, at Richard, at my mother, and something inside me cracked. I walked out. Not because I was giving up, but because staying in that room felt like drowning. I went to my bedroom, shut the door, and for the first time in months I let myself break, quietly, with my face in my hands, because the truth hit me with full force. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't fixable. Lily had complete control of the narrative, and I had become the villain in her story, not because I was one, but because she needed one, and I was the easiest target. Medical appointments in that house were sacred performances. Lily's stage, Richard's audience, my labor. Every visit followed a script. Lily would act helpless, Richard would dramatize her fragility, and I would push the wheelchair, carry the bags, answer the questions, and handle everything they couldn't be bothered to manage. But this time was different. The tension in the house after, Richard accused me of neglect, and Lily pretended to forgive me hung like fog. Nobody had spoken about it again, but everyone carried the bruise of it. My mother avoided my eyes. Richard watched me like a supervisor waiting for a mistake. And Lily, she had begun to smile at me again, but differently, not kindly, like she knew she had one. The appointment was early, too early. Lily made a show of needing help with everything, putting on socks, brushing her hair, getting into her chair. She whimpered dramatically with each movement, glancing at Richard for approval. Dadder, can you tell Michael to be gentle? He's being a little rough. I wasn't. I was barely touching her. Richard glared. Michael, she is in pain. I swallowed my anger. I know. I'm being careful. He acted like he didn't hear me. By the time we arrived at the clinic, Lily was slumped in her wheelchair, eyes half closed, arms limp at her sides. Anyone watching would think she barely had the strength to breathe. But I'd just seen her scrolling TikTok in the car. We checked in, waited, moved to a smaller exam room. Lily made soft moans every few minutes, loud enough for sympathy but quiet enough to seem brave. When the physical therapist came in, everything changed. Her name was Ms. Ryder, a sharp, calm woman in her late 40s, with the kind of expression that saw straight through performance. Her eyes flicked from Lily to Richard, then to me, and she took in every detail. Lily Robertson, 16, she read from the chart. Here for your quarterly mobility assessment. Mobility assessment, the thing that kept the disability payments flowing. Why yes, Lily whispered. I'm having a bad day. I can't move much. Richard placed a hand on her shoulder. She's been very weak lately. Ms. Ryder didn't respond to him. She knelt beside Lily and spoke directly to her. I see, and your symptoms. They're constant, or do they change throughout the day? See, constant, Lily breathed. It's just really hard for me. And you need assistance with everything? Ms. Ryder continued. Yes, Lily whispered. Everything. The woman nodded slowly, her eyes unreadable. Would you show me how you transfer between wheelchairs? She asked. Lily froze. My heart stopped. Richard frowned. Transfer? She can't, she needs full support. Ms. Ryder smiled politely. but her eyes were sharp. It's standard procedure. We need to see her functional ability in a controlled environment. She can't, Richard repeated, firm. She's not capable. Ms. Ryder turned to Lily. Your chart says you can perform limited transfers with assistance. Is that incorrect? Lily swallowed. No, I'm weaker today. Of course, the woman said easily. Bad days happen. Michael, could you step outside for a moment? We'll give her some space. Richard tensed. Why does he need to leave? Ms. Ryder's polite smile didn't budge. Because teenagers often perform better without family watching. It's common and useful. Richard hesitated, torn between control and wanting to seem cooperative. Fine, he said tightly. Come on, Michael. We stepped into the hallway. The moment the door shut, Richard turned on me. Don't upset her today, he warned quietly. She doesn't need stress. I didn't answer. I was too busy listening. Through the thin door, I could hear everything. Ms. Ryder's voice was calm. Okay, Lily, show me how you move. Silence. Then, something scraped. A shift. A movement that was not helpless. A small grunt nod of pain. But effort. My heart raced. Then Ms. Ryder spoke again. But her voice had changed. It wasn't clinical anymore. It was knowing. Well, she said softly. That was much easier than you pretended, wasn't it? My blood ran cold. Richard stiffened. What? We both stared at the door. Then the knob turned. Ms. Ryder opened it. Her expression perfectly neutral professional, but heavy with unspoken conclusions. Mr. Robertson, she said, may I have a word with you privately? What? Why? He demanded. It concerns your daughter's mobility claims. Claims. She didn't blink. Yes, and her disability aid. Richard's face drained of color. Lily sat in the exam chair behind her, eyes wide, caught in the middle of shifting wheelchairs, one of her legs positioned in a way she never allowed anyone to see. But she wasn't limp, or weak, or unable to move. She looked exactly like what she was, a teenager who had been caught. Richard pushed past Ms. Ryder and rushed to Lily. Sweetheart, what is she talking about? Did something happen? Did he force you? Don't, Ms. Ryder said sharply. Not another excuse? Richard turned, stunned. I watched her stand, Ms. Ryder said quietly, with minimal assistance, and I watched her sit down into the second wheelchair with near full control. Lily's face went white. That, Ms. Ryder continued, is not consistent with the level of disability you are reporting. Richard looked sick. There must be a mistake. She's just having a good moment. She is capable, Ms. Ryder cut in. More capable than you claim. And that means two things. First, this assessment is being flagged. Second, there will be an investigation into the benefits you are receiving. Lily's breathing grew faster. Dad, I didn't dad. I'm scared. But Ms. Ryder wasn't having it. She turned to Lily, voice calm but firm. You switched wheelchairs when you thought no one was watching. You moved with control. You lifted yourself. You've been pretending to be completely dependent, but your body doesn't show signs of that level of disuse. I can explain, Lily stammered. My legs hurt. It's over, Ms. Ryder said, softer now. Just be honest. You're not as weak as you say. For the first time ever, Lily's eyes didn't fill with fake tears. They filled with real ones. Because she knew, for the first time, she wasn't in control of the narrative, and she couldn't lie her way out. Richard sank into the nearest chair, pale and shaking. My mother stood frozen in the doorway, looking as if the ground had dropped beneath her. And me? I just stood there, trembling not with fear, but with relief so powerful it almost felt like grief. The truth was finally coming out, and everything was about to change. Some people think consequences arrive like lightning bright, loud, instant. But in real life, they creep. Quiet steps, official letters, unexpected phone calls, a silence in the house that feels heavier than any argument. The fallout began the same day as the appointment long before anyone said the word. Fraud. The drive home was the quietest car ride of my life. Richard kept one hand gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles were white. His jaw was locked. His eyes never left the road. Lily sat in the back seat beside me, staring forward, her face pale but tight, calculating, thinking, planning. I could tell she wasn't scared. She was strategizing. My mother sat in the front, hands folded tightly in her lap, refusing to say a single word. Shame wrapped around her like a scarf. Or maybe guilt, or both. When we got home, Richard didn't slam the front door. He closed it gently, and that was somehow worse. He turned to Lily. The calm in his voice was unnatural, like he was forcing every syllable out through clenched teeth. Go to your room. Lily blinked. Dad, go, he repeated, softer this time but deadly. She hesitated only a second, before wheeling herself toward the hallway dramatically slow, as if to remind him of her supposed frailty. But for the first time ever, Richard didn't rush to help her. He didn't even look at her. He looked at me, and something in his face, anger, confusion, humiliation made my stomach twist. My mother stood in the corner, silent, watching all of us like she wasn't sure which side she was supposed to stand on. That evening, the phone rang. Richard snatched it up before the second ring. His voice started normal. Hello, this is Richard Robertson. Then it turned flat. Yes, we were at the assessment today. Then tight, flagged, then terrified. Fraud investigation. No, That has to be a misunderstanding. My daughter is disabled. She struggles daily, I swear. He stopped speaking. He listened, and as he listened, his face collapsed. Whatever the person on the other end said, he couldn't argue with it. Eventually, he muttered, "Yes, I understand," and hung up. A silence filled the house so deep you could feel it pressing against your skin. Richard stood in the middle of the living room, staring at nothing. My mother finally spoke, voice small. "What did they say?" "They're sending a team," Richard whispered. "A formal investigator. Maybe two." My mother's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God." Richard's voice dropped to a whisper. "If they find intentional misrepresentation," he swallowed, "we could be charged." Charged, not fined. Charged. For a second, the room seemed to tilt. Lily's lies weren't just annoying anymore. They weren't just unfair. They were illegal. And Richard hadn't just believed her, he'd enabled her, repeated her lies, signed documents, pushed her narrative. Whether he knew she was faking or not wouldn't matter to investigators. He was responsible. And he knew it. He sank down onto the couch with the weight of someone who just had. The ground pulled out from under him. My mother hesitated, then sat next to him. We can handle this. Maybe it's not as bad as it sounds. They said the clinic footage will be reviewed," he whispered. "Every appointment, every transfer, every movement." My stomach clenched. Lily had slipped many times. Rolled her chair too, easily. Grabbed something too quickly. Forgot to limp on one side. Forgot to look weak after laughing at a joke. It was all on camera. Richard rubbed his face like he was trying to wake up from a nightmare. I trusted her, I thought. He broke off, swallowed, then whispered, "How could she do this to us?" My mother lowered her eyes. "She's a child, Richard. She's 16, he snapped. "She's old enough to know what she did. She's scared." My mom tried again quietly. "No," he said, shaking his head, eyes red. "She's lying." Finally, he could say the word. He turned his head slowly toward me. "Michael," he murmured. "Did you know? Did you notice anything?" My mother stiffened. I felt my entire body go cold. This was the moment I had waited for. The moment the truth could finally come out. Everything in me wanted to scream. Yes, I saw everything. I told you. I tried to warn you. She made my life hell. But I didn't. Something inside me, something tired and bruised, held me back. I said quietly, I noticed she was more capable than she acted. It was diplomatic. Safe. Fair. Richard nodded slowly, shame flickering in his eyes. I should have listened more. Paid attention. I didn't know. I believed him. For the first time, I believed him. He wasn't evil. He wasn't manipulating me. He wasn't trying to hurt me. He was a father who had been blinded by guilt, love, and desperation, and his daughter took advantage of every inch. My mother reached over and touched Richard's arm. She didn't look at me. Not once. Later that night, a soft knock came at my bedroom door. It opened before I even answered. Lily rolled inside. Her face was blotchy from crying. Real crying. Tears that left streaks, instead of being carefully dabbed into place for dramatic effect. "Michael," she whispered, "please, you have to help me." I stared at her, numb. She sniffed hard. "They're going to take away our benefits. My father could get arrested. They could take me away from him." "I didn't do anything," I said quietly. Her eyes widened. "You have to tell them I didn't lie." "You did lie," I said, my voice cracking from months of exhaustion. "To them, to him, about me, about everything." Her hands balled into fists on her lap. "You don't understand what it's like. People only care about me when I'm sick, when I'm weak, when I need help. If I get better, nobody looks at me. Investigators don't arrive with flashing lights or shouting. They come quietly. Professional smiles, clipboards, calm voices. But their presence feels like someone dropped a bomb into your living room." The morning the investigator arrived, the house felt frozen. No one spoke at breakfast. No one made eye contact. Even the air felt brittle. Richard sat at the table, untouched coffee in front of him, tapping one finger against the mug so rhythmically it sounded like a heartbeat. My mother hovered near the kitchen counter, nervously rearranging objects that didn't need rearranging. Salt shaker, napkins, a spoon, anything to avoid thinking. Lily hadn't come out of her room. She hadn't spoken a word since the night before. Then the doorbell rang. Richard flinched. My mother inhaled sharply. I froze. He stood slowly. "I'll get it." He smoothed his shirt, pointless, considering his hands were shaking, and walked to the door. When he opened it, a tall woman in a navy blazer greeted him. "Good morning. I'm Investigator Dana Fielding with the Department of Health Services." We spoke on the phone. Richard swallowed. "Yes, please come in." She stepped inside with a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. That alone told me she was the type of person who noticed everything. My mother stepped forward. "Can I get you something to drink? Water? Coffee?" "No, thank you," Investigator Fielding said. "I prefer to get straight to work." My mother's hands twitched. Richard motioned toward the living room. "We can speak here." "Perfect," the investigator sat, opening a folder thick with papers. She didn't waste time. "We're reviewing a discrepancy between Lily Robertson's reported functional limitations and observations made at her recent mobility assessment." Richard nodded stiffly. "I understand this is a stressful situation," she continued, "but I need clarity, and I need honesty. For your sake and Lily's. Honesty. A foreign language in this house. Where is Lily?" she asked. In her room, Richard said. She's resting. We'll need to speak with her shortly, Investigator Fielding said. But first, I want to ask some questions. She turned to my mother. You're her stepmother? My mom nodded. Yes, and you're her primary caregiver alongside? Her eyes shifted to me. Richard cleared his throat. My stepson, Michael. He's been helping since summer. Not helping, my mother murmured. He's been doing everything. The investigator's eyes flicked up, interested. Everything? Richard shifted uncomfortably. He's been assisting. Unpaid? Fielding asked. I looked at the floor. Richard didn't answer. That was answer enough. Fielding wrote something down. Then she asked, when did you first notice inconsistencies in Lily's condition? Richard blinked. Inconsistencies? Yes, she said calmly. Any moments where she appeared more mobile or capable. Then she presented to doctors. Richard froze. My mother froze. And all three of us knew the answer, even if no one wanted to say it. Finally, my mother spoke softly. There were moments, little things. We didn't know what to think. Fielding's expression didn't change, but she wrote more. And you? She asked, looking directly at me. Did you observe anything? The room held its breath. I took a slow breath. I didn't want to destroy their lives, but I also wasn't going to lie. Yes, I said quietly. I saw things that didn't match what she claimed. Richard bowed his head in shame. Fielding closed the folder. Thank you. This helps. Then she stood. I need to speak with Lily now. The hallway to Lily's room felt like walking toward a bomb about to detonate. Richard knocked gently. Sweetheart, the investigator is here. Silence. A long, suffocating silence. Lily, he said again, voice breaking. Please open the door. After a moment, the lock clicked. When the door opened, Lily wasn't in her wheelchair. She was sitting on her bed, legs bent, posture normal. No sign of weakness. She froze the second she saw us, realizing her mistake. Investigator Fielding didn't blink. Hello, Lily, she said. May I come in? Lily scrambled, trying to reach her wheelchair and throw herself into it. But Fielding raised a hand sharply. Stop. Lily froze. Sit, Fielding said firmly. Exactly where you are. Lily sank back onto the bed. The investigator stepped fully into the room. Lily, I'm here because your assessment showed mobility greater than what has been reported. For your disability benefits, I need you to be honest with me. Lily's voice trembled. I am disabled. Being disabled and being incapable are two different things. Fielding replied. Your records indicate a level of dependence that does not match what clinicians observed. Lily's eyes filled not with fake tears but with panic. Real fear. I didn't lie, she whispered. I just had a good day. Fielding cocked her head. The footage shows multiple good days, including at home, at the clinic, and during transitions. I watched Lily's mind race. She was running out of scripts. Fielding took a step closer. Lily, if you're exaggerating your condition, the best thing you can do right now is admit it. We can correct the paperwork. But if you continue lying during an investigation, it becomes a criminal issue. Lily's face went white. Richard put his hand over his mouth. My mother gripped the doorway. Fielding paused, then delivered the line that finally shattered everything. Lily, why do you pretend to be more disabled than you are? Silence. A long, fragile silence. And then Lily whispered, voice cracking. Because when I'm normal, nobody cares about me. The whole house exhaled. Richard staggered back like she had physically hit him. My mother started crying softly. I closed my eyes, because finally she had said it out loud. Lily looked up, sobbing now. When I'm weak, people help me. When I'm helpless, my dad stays home. People are nice to me. They don't ignore me. They don't forget me. I'm nobody unless I'm sick. It was the first honest thing I'd heard her say in months. Fielding nodded gently. Thank you for telling the truth. She closed her folder. I'll be filing a correction. Benefits will be paused immediately. We'll likely schedule a follow-up interview. Depending on the extent of exaggeration, there may be fines, possibly more. Richard bent forward, face in his hands. Lily cried helplessly on the bed. My mother hugged her arms around herself like she was freezing. The house, every lie, every performance, every manipulation was collapsing. And for the first time since I'd moved in, it was quiet. Not fake quiet. Not oppressive quiet. Just quiet. The kind that comes after a storm. The kind that means something new is coming. Something none of us were ready for. Here is your full, expanded, emotional, dramatic final chapter. Chapter 10, all on its own. After the investigator left, the house didn't feel like the same place anymore. It was too quiet, too still. It felt like a space that had once been full of lies, now suddenly emptied of them. And what remained was the mess underneath the raw truth, exposed for the first time. Richard didn't speak for the rest of the day. Not a word. He sat on the couch, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor like it could give him answers he'd been missing for months. My mother hovered around him, offering tea, water. Dinner. He didn't accept anything? Lily stayed in her room with the door closed. For once, no one checked on her. Not even Richard. The silence became a living thing in the house, stretching into hours, then the whole evening. Finally, around 9 p.m., Richard stood up abruptly and walked down the hall. We all heard him knock on Lily's door. Lily, he said, voice softer than I'd ever heard it. We need to talk. Her voice came out small, okay? He went inside. He didn't close the door all the way, and from the living room I could hear them, their words broken, low, painful. I don't understand why, he said, voice cracking. Why would you do this? To yourself or to us? You don't get it, she sobbed. When I'm normal, No one cares. That's not true. It is true. She cried harder. When I'm sick, you never leave me alone. When I'm helpless, everyone pays attention. You look at me. You listen. When I'm normal, everyone just lives their life. Without me. Richard rubbed his forehead. Is that how you felt all this time? Lily cried into her hands. Richard didn't yell. That was the strange part. I expected yelling, accusations, fury, but he didn't have any anger left. What he had was heartbreak. You could have talked to me, he whispered. I would have listened. No, you wouldn't have, Lily said bitterly. You're always working. You're always tired. But when I pretend to fall, you come running. Richard closed his eyes because he knew she was, right? She had learned the one behavior that guaranteed attention, and she clung to it. Sweetheart, he said quietly, you don't need to be sick for me to love you. But it's the only time anyone sees me, she whispered. Richard swallowed hard. Then, that's my failure, not yours. He stayed with her for an hour. Nobody moved in the rest of the house. Not me. Not my mom. We all listened not because we wanted to, but because the truth was finally spilling out into the walls. Like a confession the whole house needed to hear. When Richard finally emerged, he looked older, exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with work. He walked straight past all of us and out onto the porch. My mother followed him. I stayed inside, watching through the window as they talked. Richard leaned on the railing, staring into the dark yard. She needs help, he said quietly when my mother reached him. Real help. I know, my mom said softly. And you do too. He nodded. And, Michael, he added, lowering his head, I owe him an apology. My mother swallowed? Yes, you do. He exhaled a long, shaky breath. I believed every lie she told. Every single one. I didn't question anything. I let her manipulate everything. I didn't protect him. I made him carry everything. My mother touched his arm gently. You didn't know. It was my job to know, he said. I failed all of you. He came back inside a few minutes later and found me in the living room. He sat down across from me. For the first time since the day he married my mom, Richard looked small, human, not the stern authority figure he tried to be. He rubbed his palms together. I'm sorry, Michael. I didn't speak. You didn't deserve any of this, he continued, voice shaking. Not the yelling, not the blame, not the pressure. He swallowed. You were a kid trying to help, and we put our entire world on your shoulders. My throat tightened. You gave up your gap year for us, he said. And instead of thanking you, I made you feel like a burden, like you were doing something wrong. You weren't. He looked me in the eyes. You were the only one who actually saw what was happening. I exhaled shakily. He nodded toward the hallway. The investigator said there will be a follow-up meeting. I'm going to handle everything. You won't be involved. This isn't your responsibility anymore. My chest felt lighter than it had in months. Then he added something I didn't expect. And if you want to go back to school, or get a job, or move out for a while, you can. You don't owe us anything. The validation hit me so hard I almost cried. But I didn't. I just nodded. Thank you, I whispered. The next morning, Lily asked to speak to me. I didn't want to go in her room, but I did. She sat in her wheelchair using it, but not slumping into her act. Her eyes were puffy, her voice was small. Michael, I'm sorry. I didn't trust the apology at first, but then she continued. I didn't understand how bad I was making it for you. I wanted someone to notice me, and I didn't care if it hurt you. That wasn't fair. You were trying to help, and I pushed you until you hated me? She looked down at her hands. I know you'll never trust me. I don't expect you to. But I wanted to say it. My jaw tightened, but something in her tone told me she meant it. Okay, I said quietly. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I'll fix it. I'll tell the investigator everything. Dad won't get in trouble. She wasn't perfect. She wasn't suddenly healed. But she was finally facing the truth, and that was more than I ever thought I'd see. A week later, the follow-up happened. Lily admitted the exaggerations. Richard corrected the forms. The investigation found inconsistencies, but noted cooperation. Benefits were reduced, not removed. No charges were filed, just mandatory therapy for Lily. The house settled, not into its old routine, but into something real. Richard became more present. My mother learned to speak up. Lily started physical therapy, honestly no performance. And me? I applied to college again, got accepted, and left that house with my head held high. Not broken, not bitter, just free. The day I moved out, Lily rolled up to me in the driveway. Will you visit? She asked cautiously. I paused, then nodded. I will. Because despite everything, lying, manipulation, chaos, she was still a kid who had grown up twisting pain into attention. And she was finally unlearning it. Richard hugged me. My mother cried. I got into my car, my own life finally waiting for me. As I pulled out of the driveway, I looked at the house one last time. It still held all the memories, the lies, the exhaustion, the fear. But now, it held truth too. Things weren't perfect, but they were finally honest, and sometimes that's enough to start healing. 2 years can change a person. 2 years can change a whole family. That house, the one that once felt like a cage, is quieter now. Not silent with secrets, but peaceful. In a way I never believed it could be. I stand at the end of the familiar driveway, suitcase in hand, breathing in the scent of early summer. College has changed me. Freedom has changed me. Distance has changed me. But visiting still brings a flutter in my chest. Not fear, just the weight of old memories. The front door swings open. Lily wheels out onto the porch. But she's not the same girl I left behind. Her hair is shorter. Her posture stronger. Her arms toned from actual physical therapy, not the pretend weakness she used to perform. She wears normal clothes, jeans, and a hoodie, not the oversized blankets she used to drape over herself to seem small. Michael, she shouts down the driveway. She doesn't even pretend to need help maneuvering the ramp. When she reaches me, she doesn't put on a performance. She just smiles, bright and real. You're early, she says, rolling back a bit so I have space. You look good, I say, genuinely surprised by how true it feels. She beams. I've been practicing. Her new wheelchair is sleek and sporty, nothing like the clunky one she used to hide behind. She's learned to glide, not slump. To move, not pretend she can't. I'm walking a little now, she adds shyly. Not much, but it's enough. Really? She nods. Want to see? Before I can answer, the front door opens again. Richard steps outside, now grayer at the temples, less tense in the shoulders. He wears comfortable clothes, not the suit armor he used to live in. When he spots me, his face breaks into a proud smile. There he is, he calls. My mom appears behind him, practically glowing. Look at you, she says, hugging me the moment I'm within reach. College looks good on you. It's been good to me. I laugh. Richard claps a hand on my shoulder. We're taking you out to dinner. Your favorite place? And Lily picked the desert spot. Lily raises a hand. I'm legally allowed to steal his ice cream. No, you're not, I say. Yes, I am. I asked. I grin. The banter, the ease. It's new and real. Later, after dinner, while my mom and Richard go inside to get the dessert orders, Lily rolls her chair beside me outside the ice cream shop. Can I show you something? She asks. Sure. She positions herself near the handrail and slowly, with visible effort, stands. Her legs tremble. She grips the rail, but she stands. A full 5 seconds, then 10, then 15. She sits back down, breathing heavily but smiling wide. That's amazing, I say, honestly impressed.